Let's take you here now. A KwaZulu-Natal judge is at the center of controversy. She's accused of meting out injustice. In a recent ruling, a man accused of raping a 6-year-old girl was given a 7-year suspended sentence. In her judgment, she said the sentence was sufficient punishment because the victim showed no signs of trauma. Alison Tilley is from the Judicial Monitoring Group, Judges Matter. She's slammed her conduct, saying she all too often deviates from prescribed minimum sentences. She joins us via Skype for more details on this disturbing story. Thank you very much for joining us, Alison. We understand that a number of her cases have come under review. Why?
Well, it's certainly about 18 of them as of November last year, and it seems to follow a pattern where the accused are given sentences that are remarkably lenient. And there are statements made in the judgments which do not accord with our jurisprudence on sexual offences and how they should be decided.
What are some of the sentences that she makes in the judgments?
Well, I think one of the ones that was particularly notable last year was a discussion about where a man who was the accused in a rape matter, she said, well, he used a handbag. And she seemed to be gay, and therefore she drew an inference that this person then was not going to be, guilty of rape. So I think it's not just ordinary matters where the minimum sentencing legislation is ignored, but also where there are these strange gender stereotypes which are invoked. But as I say, always to have a lesser sentence, a suspended sentence, or time served.
Where the minimum sentencing has been ignored, and especially the cases that have been reviewed, have we seen an overturning of those sentences?
One of the ways that the system works is that these serious sentences are sent for automatic review by a judge, and that's really how we've picked up on these cases, is that the High Court judges have sent these back saying that these sentences are really problematic. And so that's one of the reasons that the Magistrates Commission has been looking into the decisions of this magistrate. But it's now been some time since they started doing that, and she's still not yet suspended. She is still dealing with part-heard matters.
How many cases are we talking about here? Were these isolated incidents, or like you said a little bit earlier on, it seems to be a pattern, but how many cases are we talking about?
Well, I'm aware of about 20 of them since we first started following the story last year. So that's a significant number in terms of a magistrate looking at sexual offences in the regional court, which is where these cases are heard.
So from what you're saying, it would sound like she's been found wanting. You mentioned that she has not been suspended. Why?
That's a very good question. The Magistrates Commission have indicated that they want to do an inquiry, which is fair enough, but the provisions of the legislation specifically allow you to suspend a magistrate while an inquiry is being conducted. It's not easy. You have to go to Parliament, which is as it should be, but they just haven't moved on it, even though these allegations have been kicking around for over a year now.
So does this mean that she's still a sitting magistrate and could oversee another case?
She's still, as we understand it, she's still sitting in part-heard matters. So she's not getting new cases, but she's completing cases that she's half-heard or a quarter-heard. So she'd still be handing down sentences. It's difficult, in that case, do you stop and vacate the whole thing and start again? That's obviously very tough for your survivor. But at the same time, it's clearly obvious that there's a significant problem here. And this magistrate should not be sitting in these matters and should have been suspended, for some considerable time already.
In one of her judgments, we'll look at the case of a 6-year girl in meting out sentence or punishment to the alleged offender. She says that the victim showed no signs of trauma. You told us about other cases like a little bit earlier on. What could possibly be her motive for giving such judgments?
Well, I think that's been interestingly been raised in an opinion piece, which has followed on the reporting in the Sunday Times at the weekend, where the question is being asked if these mistakes are being made so relentlessly, and despite being corrected in these review decisions coming down from the High Court, it really does beg the question as to whether this is just error or incompetence, or whether in fact there is something more sinister at play.
Let's leave it there. Thank you very much, Alison Tilley. But before we actually let you go, Alison, I'm sorry, unfortunately, a little bit too late there. Alison Tilley of the Judicial Monitoring Group Judges Matter. Thank you very much for your time. Oh, she is back. Thank you very much, team. Alison, I believe you're still there. So in terms of what happens now, you told us it's still a process and would need to go to Parliament. But in terms of timelines, what are we looking at?
Well, we've been doing some research looking at conduct processes for magistrates, and they vary a lot. I would say an average would be a year to 18 months, which would be from when the charges are laid at the Magistrates Commission to when the matter is resolved. So even if we start today, she might be suspended soon, but the matter will still take a while to resolve. And usually under those circumstances, you would be suspended on pay. So I really think, it's a real indictment of the Commission, the Magistrates Commission, that they have not moved faster on this particular magistrate and these very, very serious concerns.
Thank you very much for your time. Alison Tilley of the Judicial Monitoring Group Judges Matter.